Hey guys, welcome back to our video. Today we're going to take this transmission off, change the real main seal, and replace the clutch.
The real main seal? The real one? Alright guys, we just got a package in from rockauto.com, and shout out to rockauto.com. We're not supported by them in any way, but I got online and I did some research, and they were by far the cheapest. I paid a couple extra dollars for the shipping and got it in like 3 days. I ordered a clutch kit that has the pressure plate, the clutch, finding tool, all that stuff, bearing. I ordered a oil pump, and I ordered a thermostat. I ordered the ASIN, I think is how you say it, stuff, because it's basically Toyota OEM stuff, and their price as Rock Auto was great. Shipping on all this was about $17, but I paid $4 extra, $21, to get it here about 3 days early, and it actually came a day earlier than that. I ordered it on Monday, it got here Wednesday afternoon, so that's pretty awesome. Let's see what we got. First thing we gotta do is get this transmission and transfer case pulled out of here. So let's get that bad boy pulled out. Alright guys, here we are this morning in the shop getting ready to work on this clutch. We pulled the clutch off last night, or the transmission off yesterday, and left the bell housing on there. Did that for two reasons. One is these motor mounts. If we take these motor mounts off, if we take this bell housing off, we lose the motor mounts on the whole back half of the motor, which we did put a jack stand under there, but we're going to try to see if we can do it without taking this bell housing off. There's a lot of room up in there. I think we'd be able to do it, so we're going to try to do it with the bell housing on. But we're also going to clean up this transmission today, pressure wash it. We've already pressure washed it a couple times, but we'll clean up a little bit more, scrub it, maybe paint it, and take some Ajax to that aluminum transfer case and try to polish that up a little bit. Also need to paint the emergency brake section back there in the back. So that's our goal for today. Hopefully we can get this done. What do you think?
Yeah.
That's all you got to say? All right. All right, Judson's over there playing with the pressure washer while I'm working. But I think I got this motor pretty clean. My OCD wants to get in every little crack and crevice that I possibly can and get every tiny little piece of grease, but you know, it's about as clean as you can get it without spending another couple hours on it, and I'm not going to do that. I am going to tape it off the transfer case, and I'm going to paint the transmission and the emergency brake back there with some engine paint, black, probably do flat black, and I'm going to let it dry first, and then we will get to work on putting that clutch in and getting this thing put back together. Alright, I got this bell housing cover cleaned up, straightened it up a little bit. It was a little bit bent, banged it a little bit, and straightened it up and sanded it down. Now I'm going to wipe it down with some acetone, clean it up, and then I'm going to give it a coat of high temperature gloss black. Okay, I finally got the main seal on. I actually had to do two. The first one, I thought I'd tore it up putting it in, but when I took it out, it was actually okay. And but I was afraid if I had to pull it out, it's this one here, that I would mess up this edge pulling out. So I bought a second one. As I've said before, I'm learning as I go. It took a long time because I had to make sure that I had it all the way in, or not all the way in, but kind of started in before I pushed it the rest of the way in. Every time I'd start to push one side in, this side would pop out. But I just took my time. I put some grease on it, a little bit of grease to try to make it go as smooth as possible. And I actually loosened this main bearing cap down at the end. It never moved really, I don't think. But if I were to do this again, when I had the oil pan off, I would loosen this main cap here at the end and drop it, you know, 1/8 of an inch, and then the seal would pop right in there, no problem. Tighten it back up, then replace the oil pan. But we did the oil pan first. Like I said, I'm learning as I go. But anyways, I got the seal in there, got it seated good. So I'm going to clean this up with some brake parts cleaner. Just spray in here and get the grease and oil off. And then I'm going to put my new flex plate on. In case you're wondering, the 2F engine manual, repair manual from Toyota says that these need to be between, I think it was like 70 it was an odd, like 72 and 91, so I did them at 85. I figured that was right about in the middle. They were pretty tight when I took them off, so I did 85 foot-pounds of torque with my torque wrench down here. Set it on and double checked it. Do it a couple, I tightened them down by hand first. Then I did the torque wrench about one turn, and then over back on this one turn, and it clicked. One turn on it clicked. Check this one click. Check this one click. So it went on there good and straight. Like I said, I don't think it moved at all. I never saw any space here, and it didn't seem any easier really, but I just loosened it just in case. I thought maybe there might be just enough give in this cork gasket to give a little bit of room, but I'm not sure if it worked or not. But next time I'll replace that main seal when I have the oil pan off, so I can drop that main bearing and just pop it in there. All right, here's my shiny new resurfaced flywheel. Took it to a machine shop, and this is what they call stepped. It's about 1/8 of an inch or even less than that, really lower on the outside. Down on the inside, they looked it up in their book for the right specs, turned it, it looks great. They cleaned it even more than I did. Sprayed it with some corrosive inhibitive stuff because it's been about a week. So I'm going to put it in, torque my bolts down. I'll show that in the video in a minute, and then I'll clean this really good to get any kind of that rust inhibitor stuff off, so it's nice and clean when the clutch engages for the first time. I'll have to break in the clutch, and basically what you do is just nice, easy, soft driving. I think for like about 300 stop and go miles, and that will eventually make this surface the right surface that it needs to be broke in. All right, so I took about 30 minutes and I scrubbed these bolts.
I scrubbed them.
Well, I scrubbed them again to make sure they were clean with some brake cleaner. And the reason is I also you see all those Q-tips. I cleaned the holes in here, got all the grease out. There was oil all in there, and these bolts were all oily from where the rear main seal was leaking. And if you don't get the oil off these bolts and you don't get them clean, then they won't torque right and the thread lock won't work. So I cleaned them, like I said, with brake cleaner and a towel, or actually an old t-shirt, and just scrubbed them until no more black grease or oil was coming off. Now we're gonna take this flywheel, and you got to position the little crank pin in there, and then we'll put the bolts in and we will torque them down to spec, kind of at a cross pattern. We'll probably torque them, just snug them up, and then we'll torque them in about 3 or 4 passes up to what the recommendation is, and I'll tell you what that is in just a second. All right, I got the new or the resurfaced flex plate on there. We got the bolts on, torqued them down to 60. So we did 30, 50, and then 60 cross pattern like a star. Got those good and tight. Cleaned off the surface with some brake cleaner. And then now we've cleaned off the pressure plate and are cleaning the bolts that hold the pressure plate on. And we're going to put those on in just a second with our thread locker. We're using this Permatex high strength orange thread locker. Alright, so I cleaned the pressure plate with brake cleaner, got the clutch, and the diagram online shows this, whatever this is on this back side, being on the outside. So the clutch goes in this way, this towards the motor. So I've got it in here, got the alignment tool. So I'll put this in, put this into the pilot bearing to align it. First I'm going to have to get this up in there and then I'll align it. I'm going to put like one bolt in it just to get it hanging on there. And I've also got to get the dowels that are on the flywheel to line up here. So it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. But let me see if I can do this. Alright, so I got the clutch pressure plate put in. Had to line up the dowels, and what I did was I put a couple bolts in just to hold it, and then I pulled them back out, put my orange thread locker on them, making sure I've got my alignment tool in there, and then I put a little mark on the pressure plate so I knew which bolt I started on, snugged them all up, went all the way around, and then came back and torqued them to 15 foot-pounds. That's what it says to do, so thread locker 15 foot-pounds. I'm going to pull out that alignment tool now, and we're going to put the fork in there. Got to replace the throwout bearing on the fork, and put that in. Alright, I got to press out the throwout bearing coupler, or whatever that's called, to put the new throwout bearing. Here's the new throwout bearing. And so what I did is I took two pieces of 2x4, and these C-clamps are not tightened down. They're just sitting there because we don't want tension on that holder. We just want to provide something for this throwout bearing to sit on. And then I took a 1.5 inch socket, which is just the right size. I'm just going to hit it. Let's see what happens. Boom. There you go. Popped right off. Alright, so I knocked the old bearing out, put the new bearing on. The coil bearing is a little bit different than this bearing. I'm not sure who makes this bearing that was in there before, but it had a flat surface here. This one's got a little bit of a angle, and I looked online and it looks like this is the correct way to put it on, the coil. And I just set it down in here, tapped it with a hammer, and it went right on. Pretty easy. So now I'm going to clean this a little. Should have cleaned this first, really. Clean a little bit of this grease off of this. Clean up my fork and put it on. Alright, I can't say enough positive about Spectre Off-Road. I've ordered twice from them now. It's taken a little bit of time to get here. It's coming all the way from California, and it is the middle of a pandemic. But what I like about them is they've got exploded pictures of everything, and I just click on the number of what I need, and it goes straight to the part. So I ordered a little plug for the bottom of our on the bottom of the bell housing. There's a splash guard. I ordered 2 new clips for the fork. It holds the throwout bearing. I ordered a plug, I don't know what you call this, but the transmission bell housing plug for one side on the driver's side, and then I got the one on the left side, the boot that the fork goes through. I got a new spring for the fork, and I got some bolts, extra bolts for the housing. So this is great stuff. It's all well marked, tells you exactly what it is, like the bolts and stuff if you're wondering, and just great customer service. I just order it, next day or two they say it's shipped, and it takes a week or so to get here. Good stuff. Okay, so I got the clutch on. I cleaned up the fork, put on the throwout bearing. I'm going to put a little bit of grease right where the fork touches the...
Grease that sucker up?
Yeah, I'm going to grease it. I didn't read anywhere that it says to grease it, but I'm sure you should, and I'm sure that just a tiny bit right here, because you got metal on metal.
Couldn't hurt it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not putting in much to where it's going to make a mess. But just put a tiny bit on there. And I'm also, inside here, there's a little pivot that this goes on. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on that as well. Put a tiny bit down in here. I'm sure somewhere in one of my service manuals it says to put a dab of grease in there. Maybe not, but I'm doing it anyways.
We're rebels.
Yep.
We're in the lamb. Isn't that what it's called when you're on the run?
The lamb?
Yeah.
Never heard of that.
Read it in a book somewhere.
Alright, these little clips, can you see from where you are, Jessica? This little clip goes on here.
It's hard to believe that little clip holds.
Yeah, it's just holding it in place. And I broke one of these when I was pulling this off earlier. Got to make sure it gets in the hole on here. There we go. Wow, you're right, it's hard to believe that little bitty clip is all it takes to hold this thing together. But it's lined up with the transmission, and so now this is going to engage and disengage the clutch. All right, let's see how we do
Well,
this.
just put it up in there.
Wouldn't that be funny if we would be able to get it in here?
I don't think that would be funny. I think that would be annoying.
Right. There's a way somehow.
Oh, I think it goes through there.
There we go. Pretty big milestone today. Got the new clutch installed, new pilot bearing, new throwout bearing, flex plate resurfaced, transmission put back on. Like I said, pretty big milestone. I don't know what happened to the footage of removing the pilot bearing. We rented 2 different pilot bearing pullers from AutoZone, and neither of them worked. They would not grab a hold of the bearings. So what we ended up doing was the old-fashioned way, where you fill it with grease, and then once it's full with grease, you actually take a piece of bread and you put some bread in there to keep it from squirting out. And then I just took an extension socket and put a piece of tape around it because it was just the right size. Put it in there and it pushed that pilot bearing out. Thanks again for watching our videos. If you like what you saw, hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you with us as we go on this journey. Also, be sure to comment down below and let us know what you think. Thanks again.